Hello, everybody, and welcome to February's last Monday marketing chat. How are you, Paige?
I'm good. How are you, Jill?
Good. Ready to chat about marketing, and I know a lot of people find marketing to be a really scary, unfortunate part of a business. They want to run their business, they want to take photos, they want to write if you're my kind of person, and then they realize that to do that you have to find clients, and to do that
Yeah.
you have to do marketing.
And I think that photographers in particular are like just stuck on this roller coaster of like up and down bookings and that emotional toll that comes with that mental block of like, oh, where is everyone? Everyone hates my work. And how do I, you know, feel good about myself when people are saying yes to booking. And I think that the stronger your marketing game is, the what I've realized over the years is like the stronger the marketing game, the more in advance you plan it, the better you execute, the less that you have that feeling of like no one likes me,
Right. And I
which no
think
one
the funny
wants.
thing, because I think everybody feels this. I know that copywriters feel this way as well. And then, so what happens is if you get really busy, you don't do your marketing, and then in about 6 to 8 weeks after that, you realize that you need to go and find people. And then you start taking it personally, right? Like, I must
Yes.
be really bad at my job because I don't have any clients. Instead of saying 6 to 8 weeks ago, I was not doing any marketing, and therefore nobody knows about me now, and nobody's like available to take up these offers because I haven't been
Yeah.
offering anything to anybody.
Well, and I think that that's the thing is like everybody always talks about, photographers always talk about how January and February is always so slow and oh, it's the downtime and this is when you should work on your website and that sort of stuff. And I always used to believe that to be true, but I really think it's because September, October, November is so busy that we don't do that marketing. And then when we, it's about a quarter later that you see those repercussions of not doing the marketing efforts. And so then you're not doing it because you have all these clients and you're too busy and I can't do that right now. So you don't write the blog, you don't post on socials, you go quiet and everyone stops paying attention to you. So then January, February comes along and you're like, where is everybody? And it's because you stopped marketing. So I found I'm kind of going off tangent here, but like I found that this year actually I'm in my best place for this time of year. And I think it's because we now have a Google Ads person that's doing our ads all the time. So even though I did get super busy in the fall and I did drop off my social medias and like stopped writing my blogs like I was supposed to, as always, um, the Google ads kept running. So we did still get leads in, even though I wasn't doing as much marketing. So I think that that's something to keep in mind as people are like analyzing those slow seasons is like, what did you do 3 to 4 months ago? Because that's what is impacting what's happening now.
Yeah. Well, and we're not going to get into the detail of it right now, but I would say that the Chunky Baby contest that you do was probably you trying to figure out a way to fill a quiet season. Would that be
That's
right?
exactly what it is. Yeah, and we'll definitely get into that and like the motivations behind it the first year I did it and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Well, before we get into the detail of that, we're going to use that as our kind of case study to describe how marketing works. But first of all, let's go through like a few bits and pieces about what marketing is, particularly for photographers. And then as we explain, there really is all marketing follows a set of rules, really. There's different parts that you always need. And we can use the Chunky Baby contest to show you all what we mean by that.
Yeah, I think marketing is kind of scary for people because they're like, I don't know how to market. But like, if you've ever done a set of mini sessions or you've ever done a model call or you've ever done like Christmas shoots or anything like that, that's marketing. You did a project. It's basically a project, right? And
Yeah.
then the steps that go into that project. Like, how do you get people in the door? How do you execute it? How do you follow up with them afterwards? So we kind of broke it down into 4 different steps. So there's the pre-launch, which is your planning, your goal setting, your budget planning, and all that. You may or may not go into all those details, but like everyone does that, right? They
There's
think
some
up the
level.
project and they have to do something to get it going. That's the pre-launch. The second thing is the actual launch. Like you're telling somebody about this thing. You're saying, "Hey, I'm having mini shoots in the fall. This is where they're going to be. This is what it's going to cost. Let me tell you about it." And then how are you telling people? Is it email, social media, whatnot? And then the next thing would be the booking. So now they know about your project. So how do they actually get on your books? Do you have a link? Do you have a website they're going to? How are they actually coming on board for this thing that you're doing? And then how are you telling them about it? Like telling them like the details that go into it, where your mini shoot is taking place, what to wear, what to bring, all those details of like that communication aspect. And then finally, how are you delivering those images to them? How are you, doing an ordering appointment or your web galleries, whatever your delivery system? And then finally, like, how do you get those people to come back? And I think that's a big part that people sometimes miss of like, what does that future booking opportunity look like? And like, how can you capitalize on this event that you just did to get more people in your door down the road so that you don't have to do as many marketing things because it's snowballed into keeping your calendar full for other projects.
Yeah, and I think sometimes marketing, and if you think about this not necessarily for photographers, but think about it in other places, think about maybe around Valentine's when it's time to book restaurants, or think about special deals that are offered in stores that you like. Um, Sometimes those are like what we call loss leaders. Sometimes the organization, the company doesn't make a whole lot of money off that event, but they're doing it for the purpose of continuing to have more people come in, more eyeballs on what they're doing. So we'll get into this in more detail when we describe how Chunky Baby works, but remember that you may not be making the money that you would off just a one-off project. When you're doing these kind of marketing campaigns, there may be some kind of discount, there may be something you're doing that makes it more appealing, and therefore you get less. So you have to balance that with, well, what do I get out of it to bring that back up to make it worth my while?
Well, yeah, and I think that that's such an important part of analyzing your marketing efforts after the fact and like, having your plan going into it of what does this look like? What do I anticipate being able to make from this event? What do I anticipate like the future of it? Like how many of these people are going to come back for fall, family bookings and like that future projection. But then also after the fact, how do you analyze like if it was worth it or not? Like, did you get people that came back in the fall because of this event that you did for Valentine's Day? Or, what is the actual revenue that you made versus what you thought you'd make and all of those
And
things. So
how long you spend on it. And
how
also,
long did you
like
spend?
a lot of things that you're talking about, they may be similar or they may be identical or similar to how a normal project works for you, how a normal client comes in. But we have talked about this before, and we're hopefully next month going to be doing more of a breakdown of like how actually what is your regular cycle of how you do everything with a client. Because if you know what that is, you can then figure out, okay, I'll cut down this part here and do a little less of that so I can charge less for it. But if you don't know how a normal project cycle works, then it's going to be much harder to put some different kind of marketing campaign in place that
Yeah.
changes from your regular cycle.
Well, and I think it just gets so much easier once you realize that there's really just like the same pieces no matter what it is that you're doing. People need the same information. They need to know how to book, they need to know what to wear, they need to know where to go and what time and all that sort of stuff. And it's just a matter of like, is this a Valentine's Day shoot or is this a Halloween shoot? Is this a Christmas shoot? Like there's so many events and opportunities throughout the year that you can turn it into these, different projects and just following that same method can also make it so easy to like put a new one together. If, next year you want to do, you know, like a fall family special or something like that, or you want to add something that you've never done before, you can really easily take those campaigns that you've done in the past and just change them around. So I've done that for like my book projects. I've done that for the Chunky Baby contest and just taken what I've already written or what I already have created and then just change the titles to whatever this new project is called. And, it doesn't take nearly as much effort once you've got one or two of them built to then create other things.
So why don't we start with Chunky Baby and we can go
Yeah.
through all the different steps before we get into the first stage, which was the pre-launch. Why, and you started these about 5 years ago, right? You've maybe run
Yeah.
five of these now in each year. Give us like a rough explanation of what Chunky Baby Contest is, because then we can see how you worked
Yeah.
backwards to get that.
Yeah. So the first year that I did it was 21. And obviously, we were like still fairly in the middle of the pandemic at that point. And so I had bookings, but I was not super busy. And I was in my new studio at that point. And so it was like, okay, actually, maybe it was 2020. because I don't know if I was in my new studio. I could be wrong. It might have been right before I was in my new studio. It might be, this might be my 6th year. I've
Wow.
lost track. Um, it might be. Yeah, because the first Chunky Baby winner was in my old studio. Okay. All right, 2020. So it's been 6 years. This was the 6th contest then. So January and February were always slow. I had this new studio being built. Then the pandemic hit, and it was like, oh God, how do I need to bring in even more money, but then people aren't spending money, they're not going out of the house, right? So how do you get people in during this quiet time of the year? And I wanted to just have enough money come in that I wasn't worried about rent. Like that was my big first goal. Like it wasn't this like massive, oh, I got to make 50 grand from this thing in 1 month. Like it wasn't like that at all. It was, I have a $2,000 rent. I need to pay it. How do I do that?
At
So I
least
was like,
for February.
yeah. So I basically was like, all right, if I charge $90 for this participation fee, and if I have between 20 and 24 babies that join this contest, I'll be able to pay my rent just with the participation fees. Even if they buy nothing else, I'll be able to just pay my rent, right? So I think the important thing to keep in mind when you're talking about these marketing things is it can be as simple as that. It doesn't have to be this grand project. And that first year really wasn't. It was so simple, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I spent so long on all the things. So basically, what Chunky Baby is, though, to get back to it, is people come in for a mini photo shoot with just their baby between 4 months old and 18 months old. So I like really defined who I was looking for and said, come on in, have a mini shoot with us. You'll get a free print and the matching digital file. If you want to buy more, you can. You don't have to. There's no obligation. And then we'll put them into this voting system, and all your friends and family can come in and vote for your cute baby. And then whoever has the most votes wins this big prize. And so I gave away my session fee plus $1,000 gift card. So it ends up being a $1,200 prize. And that first year, I didn't do any much else than that. Like I put it on, I got the votes, and everyone, like no one was required to put any information into the system. They could just go in and vote. And then the one that had the most votes got this photo shoot, right? I did nothing else. That's all I did. So then the next year I was like, okay, well, so what had happened is I had one grandma who voted like 1,000 times. Which didn't really feel fair, but I hadn't outlined that, right? And so I
Right.
think
You
one of the things
can't
that you and I
change
talked about a lot is like the rules of your business. And I was like, oh, okay, I hadn't established that as a rule, but now like this is a rule. You
now
can't
you
vote
know.
that many times. So the next year I had it built. So you had to put in your email address to be able to vote. And we went through the whole contest. The winner won. Great. Okay. And then the third year, I was like, why am I not using these email addresses? They've given me permission to contact them, but I had never done anything with that email address before. So the third year, I got smart enough to say, all right, we're going to take all these email addresses and actually communicate with these families. We had their email and their phone number. So we had text messaging at that point, and we would text them and say, bless you. We would say thank you for voting for Chunky Baby. We'd love to have you vote in our next round, just like continuously communicating with them about this project. And then at the end, they got an email saying, thank you so much. We'd love to offer you a discount off your family photo shoot. And over the years, it's just kind of gotten better and better about that final follow-up phase of how does this, create more bookings in the future. But I think the thing that is the most important part is planning it in advance so that it doesn't feel so overwhelming. Because the thing
Yeah.
that I discovered with this contest is like it's really fun. People get excited about it, and it brings in a little bit of money, but it's definitely like, as you mentioned, it's a loss leader for me.
Mhm.
It's not a ton. It's not like these families are coming in and spending thousands of dollars with me. They're maybe spending 500. A lot of them do come in and take their freebie print and walk away and just do the contest and hope to win. So generally it makes about 10 grand for the studio, which is not bad money considering, but it's not like massive either. it just kind of pads the books. But it does have a lot of work and admin stuff that goes into the contest because you have to set up all the voting pages and you have to communicate with everyone. And there's a ton of back and forth with emails. And then there's I mean, the cost of the prize is usually, it depends on what they use their $1,000 gift card for, but generally it'll cost me about $200 to $300 out of my pocket to provide this prize for them. So it's all things that you have to consider in that pre-launch phase of like, what is this going to look like? Who is participating in this project? Like I said, like for me, it was young families that had 4 to 18-month olds. And a lot of those families are past newborn clients for me. So it's a really great opportunity for me to reach back out to those clients that were great and, maybe spent a lot of money with me or just were really nice families to work with and say, hey, we'd love to have you back. So actually, one of the things that worked really well this year that I had never done before was writing a personal email to each of those families and saying, hey, Jill, we loved having Rory in as a newborn. Would you be willing to come back and join us for the Chunky Baby contest? We'd love to have him. I'd love to see how much he's grown. And, like really making it feel like I'm saying your name, I'm saying your baby's name, I'm telling you that I remember you and asking you, not straight to your face, but through email
Yeah,
directly, would you like to join this contest rather than a blanket email to everyone? I did send the blanket email to everyone too, but
but some personalized ones as well.
I found that the personalized one worked really, really well this year. So that was a part of my pre-launch and launch announcing strategy of like, all right, how do I get people in? How do I make sure that they kind of understand my pricing and are already aware? And then how do I build this out so that I'm not super stressed? That was the
Well, and
other
I think
thing.
so now the way that you run Chunky Baby can sound quite complex to people who haven't.
Yeah.
Well, we've
Yeah,
got
totally.
pages and we've got systems and but thinking about the fact that if you see this as a cycle when you're running it once a year, your pre-launch stage involves analyzing what happened last year and saying, where do I need to make tweaks to make this better? So these are
Yeah.
like incremental changes that have happened over 6 sessions. Um,
Yeah.
the first time you do it, it can be that simple. What's the audience I'm trying to attract? What's the kind of like minimum amount of money I need to make for this to work for me? How do I get in touch with these people? If they already know you, if you're doing some kind of thing where you're going back to past clients, then just in itself, that hopefully they have some trust in you as a good photographer. And so that you would like to think would help. But it's interesting to me that just sending a blanket email in itself is not enough to always make people feel special and wanted and that extra level of, wow, Paige remembers me and would like to
Yeah.
be my baby again, which is probably how it feels when you get the email.
Yeah, and I always add a little note on there, like because Chunky Baby is obviously like something that is fairly specific. So a lot of times I will get emails back from people that say like, "Oh, we'd love to join, but Susie's really not chunky" or something like that. And so I will like put a note at the bottom that says like, "Totally understand if you guys, don't want to be a part of this. If you know anyone that has a baby that could be crowned our next winner, please send them my way." So it does tend to, because it has that specific like audience, like if you have a chunky baby, if they're between these ages, if you live in Boise, then these things all like people can think of a friend that has that. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like when you're really specific with your contest or your mini shoot or your model call or whatever it is that you're doing, if you're really, really specific like that, I find that I get better people, better fits for
Yeah.
my business and better fits for my project because people either associate themselves with it and they're like, oh, that's me. Or they go, I know someone who does. Like I don't have a chunky baby that fits that age range, but my friend over here does, and I'm going to call her right now and tell her that she should do this contest. So that really helps in just like word of mouth spreading of your thing that you're, trying to get people in the door for. And yeah, Chunky Baby definitely sounds more complex, but like I said, it's because I've been doing it for 6 years and have kind of found some of these holes in my, okay, how could I do this a little better? How could I strategize? One thing that I did this year that has really, really helped is in years past, I've just kind of decided on like dates and been like, oh, okay, we're gonna do it February 15th, and then we'll announce the winner in February 28th. And it wasn't necessarily, I mean, it was kind of strategic, but not really. It was just kind of, oh, this is when it's supposed to be. But this year I was like, okay, I'm going to put all of my personal things into the calendar because we're generally really busy this time of year with travel and stuff. And so I put all those things into the calendar. And then I backed my way into where the contest actually should be so that I wasn't so stressed about having to retouch all the images for it, get them all ready to be put online. And I built myself in these buffers so that I wasn't crazy. And I think the same thing applies like when you're doing, let's say you're doing a mini shoot for the fall and people are going to want their images back for Christmas cards. And so you're going to have to get them to them, the second week in November. Well, if you have to retouch 16 families worth of images, how long does that take you? Back
Mhm.
yourself into those dates so that you can be like, ooh, I actually need to do my fall family minis like October 1st,
Right.
not October 17th or whatever, because if you waited that long, now you've stressed yourself like crazy, and now you got to do 16 families in the next week so that they can actually get them back before Thanksgiving. So those sort of things when you're planning any kind of marketing like really help to go, okay, what do I need to do before this thing can actually take place? And I think a lot of times people go, ooh, wouldn't it be fun to do a Valentine's Day shoot? Or like, yeah, I guess a better example right now would be like, okay, it's February 24th. Let's do a Mother's Day thing. And you're like, okay, it's far enough away that you could like plan it, but you got to get on it now because Mother's Day is going to be here before you know it. And if you want them back before Mother's Day, or like, what does that look like?
Mhm.
Do you want to do them on Mother's Day or like near Mother's Day so that people can give them as gifts? Or do you want to do them, in some other variation? So I think that pre-launch planning is really important in figuring out what people are going to need, what you're going to need
Yeah.
timing wise, and then how does that work? And then also that pre-launch phase is the like budgeting. Like I said, like my goal was to pay my rent, so I needed 22 babies at $90 a pop to cover that, right? But you might be like, okay, well, I want to, buy my new camera. And so I'm going to do this mini shoot and I hope to raise, 5 grand from this mini shoot to pay for my new camera. And so if that's like the big goal, then you need to back into those numbers of like, all right, I can do how many sessions can I do? Like know yourself and know like what's reasonable. I know that I can't do more than 4 or maybe 5 mini shoots in a row before I'm just emotionally drained. I know some people can do, a full day and they're fine, and that's just not me.
And that's
So
just
like,
unique to each person. It's not like we can
yeah,
say, here's the right number. This is really
yeah,
how you need to know yourself. And again, if you have a good system, you understand how long each part of the system takes. And you need to
yes.
account for all the parts, which includes the beginning parts and getting in touch with people and the day of the shoot and all the stuff that has to come afterwards.
Yeah, yeah. And so I always back into that math of like, okay, if I have, you know, 10 families and I do it over 2 days. I do 5 a day for 2 days. And those families I want to average $1,000, that makes me, $10,000 or whatever it is that I've decided is my goal. And so then whether you're like me and doing, in-person sales and like hoping to get that from your averages, or if you're like an all-inclusive photographer or something, that is more of a one set price, then you maybe want to either up your price like more than you thought, or make more slots so that you can keep the price low. Like, you kind of have to balance those things of like, what does the math actually shake out to? And what is this contest going to bring in if I fill every single spot? And that's assuming you're going to fill every spot.
And if
So,
you're giving a gift, so the gift you gave was your studio fee and a gift card, which in reality means other than the cost of printing, I'm guessing you were not really, you were losing out from that, but you weren't spending money. But depending on what
yeah,
your gift is, maybe you try and collaborate with somebody else locally, like some other service provider, where it's like
yeah.
you're offering a deal for something, but like how much will it actually cost you in time and money?
Right. And especially too, if you're going to do any kind of like Facebook ads or like paid advertising is gonna, you need to plan that into your budget of like, all right, I'm going to have this many families, but I need to do advertising and it's going to cost me $500. Like that's going to come out of that profit. So keeping all those things in mind and how much time are you going to have to spend on each of those families to do all the communication and
Yeah.
you know,
Well, and I
I
guess the
think
other thing that I was going to say was that your goal might not be monetary based. You might be like, it's a
yeah,
quiet time of month, like a quiet time of the year. I don't really care how much I make, but I would like to make some more. So I'm going to do some kind of marketing campaign just to increase my profile, just to have more people know about who I am. But then also you have to think about, well, how much time does it take if you don't know what money you're getting back? And remembering that if you're offering a deal, you can't then be annoyed at people who take you up on only the minimum of the deal.
right.
I mean, you can, but
Absolutely.
they're going to not get good customer service out of that. If you offer somebody
Yes.
something, you have to be okay with them taking the minimum thing that you're offering.
Well, and here's the thing too, is like I've had a lot of people that have come for Chunky Baby, taken their freebie print and walked away. And the first few years, I was annoyed. I was like, oh, don't they want these pictures of their baby? They're so cute, And it was frustrating to me. I think one of those things that I learned is that like people need that pricing in advance. So if they haven't seen your full pricing and then you drop it on them, they're like, "Oh, I'm not going to buy anything." So I got better about from the very, very beginning saying this is what my pricing is so that they weren't, blindsided when they went to order their photos. But also just like it was okay that those families did that because as long as we provided them this great experience and they came into the studio and they said, "Oh my gosh, your studio is so beautiful. It's so great in here. Oh wow, you have dresses and like all of these clothes and like oh that's so cool." Like seeing it in person and like seeing the prints and products and all that sort of stuff is worth so much in their own experience and the word of mouth that like if they get pregnant again, I have a good chance that they're going to come to me for their newborn shoot. And if they think of me for fall family photos, then there's a good chance that they're going to come back and hire me for those things.
As
And they
long as
have. I've
they
had those clients that bought the one image, loved it, and then they ended up coming back and spending more each time they come back, they spend more money with me. So the
sometimes it's a
lifetime
long
of
game.
that client value is so much higher than that $190 session fee for Chunky
Yeah.
Baby.
Well, and so for example, at the moment, I teach in a course that's specifically about brand voice, and it's like a one-to-one kind of live course. It costs $3,000 to do, so it's not cheap. And
Yeah.
the other person that I do it with, we're having a live workshop this week, which is like a lead magnet for that. And so we already have 126 people signed up to come to the workshop, which is kind
That's
of
awesome.
amazing and a little overwhelming, to be honest. I'm sure they'll not all turn up. But I was talking to my husband about it, and he was saying, "Wow, like, are you expecting all these people to come into your course?" And I was like, "Well, no, we wouldn't have space for them." I was like, "But if they haven't heard from us before, they will see how we work. They will stay on the email list. They might be the people who join the fall session or next year's spring session. The
Absolutely.
ones who've already heard about us and sign up, they're the ones who are probably ready to buy." So often this is a long game thing which you need to factor in. And if it's your first time running a marketing campaign, you're just going to see the numbers of, gosh, everybody didn't buy as much as I'd hoped. But tracking who those people are so you can start to see that lifetime value. Oh, look, they bought in the fall. Oh, they had a new baby. Oh, they recommended me to their sister-in-law or whatever. And you can set
Yeah.
that
Well,
up.
and especially I think if you're a newer photographer and maybe you don't have like an email marketing list or anything like that built, or maybe you're new to the city that you're in, have moved, and need to rebuild, like being able to get a bunch of people in the door for these things that even if you're just getting their email addresses so that you can communicate with them and say, hey, I'm doing this thing. Hey, I'm doing this thing. I am doing this thing, and they get those emails throughout the year telling them about these opportunities to work with you. Some point, they're probably going to say yes. They might not. I mean, there's always going to be people on your list that never work with you. And that's just the nature of the beast. But sometimes these events, these loss leader sort of things can serve multiple purposes. And those future bookings and that like opportunity to continuously work with your community is more than just the monetary value of whatever the project was.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess so we've kind of covered the pre-launch, which is figuring everything out, making sure that you have enough time and including enough time to give it your best so that
Yep.
everybody who experiences, no matter what happens, have a great experience that they want to potentially carry forward. And then we've kind of covered thinking about your budget. I'm just looking through our list of things that we wanted to talk about. So probably we're now on to the launch phase. So you've
Yep.
thought about it all, you've prepped it, you know what you're going to do. How do you tell the world about it?
Yeah. So I knew I mean I did my calendar back in November, and so I knew that I was going to have to do the photo shoots in January and February so that we could do our contest in March. So we've now shot everything and I'm in the editing stage, and then the next couple weeks we'll start the actual like voting part. But in order to get people to book for January, they needed to know about it before
Mhm.
January,
Yeah.
right? And so my first thing that I did is I sent an email to my newsletter list, which is a lot of people that have voted for Chunky Baby in the past,
Yeah.
right? Because over the years, they've all gotten added to that list. Anyone that's come into my system for like they've contacted me about newborn photos, whether they actually booked me or not, they all go onto my email list. They can all unsubscribe, like they've all given me the consent to contact them. Obviously, that's really important when you are building these lists to have consent and have them opt in. But so I have all these people on my list from all these various things. And so I sent them an email and said, Chunky Baby's coming. It's been so fun. Here's some example images from the past. This is our last year's winner. Does your baby have the roles to win? And it was just this like fun email. And then it said, we haven't announced this to the public yet, but just so you guys know, here's this like exclusive early access. Here's the link to book. And they got the opportunity. The other thing that I did this year that was really different is in years past, I've kind of like let people just book, which was silly. I don't know why I always did like that. But this year I was like, oh, I should just do like 4 days and just keep it really easy. And like, in years past, I've also offered a weekend one. And I was like, I don't want to do weekends. And so I just didn't offer a weekend. I
Yep.
still filled the contest. It was fine. But for
Mhm.
whatever reason, in years past, I've had that limited belief that they'll only come if I offer a weekend date to do the photo shoot on. And that just wasn't true. So, I mean, maybe there's some people that would have.
Well, and I think Baby, because it's into its sixth year, I mean, maybe I'm biased because I see it, but I feel like enough people know that it happens that
Yeah.
so maybe in your first year it was appropriate to offer weekends. It was appropriate to let
Yeah.
people book whenever because it was a new marketing idea that you hadn't really done and people don't know what it is. But especially if they're getting the email because they voted for their friend's baby, now it's a thing. They know it's like a Boise event that happens. And
Yeah.
so you can probably shift things up a little bit now.
Yeah. So I use Tave, which is my CRM, and Tave allows you to do like a mini session date. So that's what I did. I created 4 dates with, I think it was four, I think I offered 16 slots at first. And so I had 4 days of 4 spots, and I did it on days that I normally would have been like in an editing. Like I didn't take one of my photo shoot days to do it. So it became like an extra source of income that wasn't taking the place of something that would have been more income. That was really important to me this year, like protecting those, because
Their
I feel
value.
like when you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to other things,
Mhm.
right? And so if I was saying yes to doing Chunky Baby and then this newborn came along that I couldn't take because I'd taken too many Chunky Babies, well, that doesn't make sense for my bottom line.
Mhm.
So I want to be able to run this contest and do these things without
Which
significantly
also helps having them all in one day rather than just sporadically throughout your
Yes.
calendar.
Yeah, that was huge. So yeah, so I let my email list know like back in November and said, here's the early access. I haven't announced it yet, but I will. And then in December, I posted on social media and Instagram, Facebook, whatnot, and said, I did a little reel and gave some details. I posted on my stories and just kind of let people know, hey, it's open for booking, get on the books, get on the books. And then towards the end of that month is when I started sending those personalized emails to all my past newborns and saying, hey, using their baby's name and like making it personalized. And honestly, it was still a templated email.
Yes.
So I wrote it once and actually it was like one I think that you wrote me for something entirely different that I barely tweaked so that I would be able to say, hey, personalized name, hey, baby's name, come join us. Here's the link. Would love to have you. And it sounded like it was personalized, but really it's,
Yeah, you can
a
use the same
template.
one, even if you tweak it and you add something specific you remember about them, that's just changing up one
Absolutely.
sentence rather than the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. So I went through my list of newborns, I sent it to all of them, and then pretty much after I sent that email, all my spots were full.
Nice.
So it it was a little bit slow through the social media, and I have found that less and less people are coming through that way. I did do a boosted post too on Facebook,
Like,
and I only did it for maybe like I think I did it for 10 days at $5 a day. So it was like
so
$50
I
worth
was
of.
just going to say, how much do you think you actually spent? But like $50
I
potentially.
think I spent $50. I think it was $5 a day for 10 days that I had it running. And I don't think anybody came in off that. And in years past, that has worked. So I mean, we could have a whole nother Zoom call about Facebook and like the way photographers are kind of like using it these days and if it's working and if it's not. I don't feel like it is. I feel like I get a bunch of garbage leads that cost me quite a bit of money and they never turn into bookings. So I'm putting less and less money and stock in Facebook because it's just not
Yeah.
working the same way it once
But
did.
also being able to know, okay, it's $50. It's an experiment. If I don't get anyone in off it, am I okay having spent 50
Yeah.
bucks? And
Yeah.
maybe sometimes you find people come in and kind of like they've seen the ad and then they get a message from you. Oh, and that encouraged
Well,
them.
exactly. And like sometimes it's so hard to know where that person came from because it's entirely possible that someone booked because they saw that ad and they went, "Oh yeah, I was going to do that." And then they like went and booked afterwards. So who knows? Maybe it was worth it, maybe it wasn't, but it was a minimal spend,
Yeah,
so
you were
it's
okay with it.
yeah, totally fine. And it was all part of my budget of what is this really going to look like. Um so yeah, so I sent those emails. I wrote a blog. So I had a blog that went up about, taking pictures of milestones and like this is, some great stages to take pictures. And by the way, join our Chunky Baby contest. So like the call to action at the end of the blog was join the Chunky Baby contest and like with the dates and everything like that. So that if somebody sees that post in the future, they're not gonna like try and go to the page and join the Chunky
Right.
Baby
Realize
contest.
it's
So it'll
not.
be clear that it's old. Um, but also that we do this. I tend to tell people about it too. Like
Mhm.
I always think that it's worth it. Like especially if you know what your marketing calendar is and like even if you've never done something before, if you're like, all right, in September we're gonna have these things and somebody's in their studio or in front of your camera in April,
Yeah.
like tell them about that thing in September.
Yeah.
Because you never know, like, and then maybe they're gonna see that ad later and go, oh yeah, she told me about that when we did our spring family photos. We should do this, you know?
Right. I
Um,
think a lot of times we feel embarrassed that we're like pushing something on somebody when we talk about it. But I think that's where it's key to remember that this is an offer. Like that's why we use
yeah,
that term. We're offering something up which we think they might like. We're not forcing them to take it. We're just telling them about a thing. And if you think about it from their point of view, based on the number of people who sign up, they might love to do that. They might really love the
absolutely.
idea of it. And if you don't tell them, you're not giving them the opportunity to sign up for it. So
Well, yeah,
offer
and I think that a lot of times, like to use the spring and fall example again, like a lot of times people will be like, well, that family just came to me in April, so they're probably going to use those photos for their Christmas card this year, so they probably won't come back for fall family photos. And that's like you're making that assumption for that family
based
when like
on your life, but not based
yeah.
on their
So
life.
like, yeah, you might not do family photos twice a year, but this family might want to do it 4 times a year.
Mhm.
And so I think that having those things in your back pocket to be like, hey, I know you guys just did family photos, but we're actually doing these tree farm photos in November. They're so fun. We do hot chocolate and there's a big red truck and like we just do quick little sessions. It'd be so great to get you guys a new Christmas card from that would be a little bit closer to the holidays. What do you think? Do you want to, like, I don't think that that's a bad thing to like put out there. They have the option to say no.
And it's also allows them to pass that on. Like maybe they don't care, but they might be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I was talking to someone who sets up Christmas sessions. That would
Mhm.
be so, and
Or
they were a
even just
great
like
photographer, you know."
somebody
So,
sees their photos and says, "Oh my gosh, your photos are so good. Like, who do you use?" And they say, oh, I use Paige, she's amazing, and I just found out that she's doing these Christmas tree
Yeah.
farm photos. You should go sign up. They're gonna be so cute. Like, you know, you never
Don't
know what
forget
people are gonna
about the
say.
advantage that if someone has really enjoyed your work, they love to tell people about it because it's what they're seeing as like a benefit they can pass on to somebody. And so
Yeah.
basically that friend is getting information plus someone telling them, I really like them, they were good at this, you can trust them.
Yeah.
We
Well, and
can
I think any of these like mini shoots or smaller events or like promotional things, they're all just to try and get people to understand what you're all about and like give you this like little taste of like who you are as a photographer, what your business is all about, how you treat your clients so that they can like you said, like your webinar, like you're doing this thing that's free so that they can find out about you guys. And it's not that thing is not making you money, but the experience of them like getting to know you guys is going to make you money.
yeah.
And that's what I think of when I think of all these little marketing projects and things like, yeah, the hope is to bring in money to the studio usually. But like beyond that,
Yeah,
what's the
that's
goal
the goal.
here?
Well, so the next thing that I would really like to talk about, because I know this can trip people up with marketing, and we just kind of talked about this disconnect between like maybe you don't get as much as you normally do. What if they just take the minimum? Is how do you explain the pricing and the upsell? Because if you are a parent and you hear about a free contest that just costs $90 to join and you get a photo, the disconnect that can happen between there and you hoping to sell some more out of it. So how do you kind of explain
Yeah.
the rules and or the upsell at the point when you're trying to just get them in for the contest?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're always gonna have the people that I remember last year we got this we did quite a bit more advertising on Facebook last year, and I found one of the big reasons I didn't do it this year is because I got so many people that were just they thought it was free, even though it was very clear in the way that the ad was written and the landing page and everything that there is a participation fee. This is not a free contest. And I'm very upfront about that, but sometimes people don't read and then they get mad, right? And
Because
so
it's
we
not what
had
they
run
thought
this,
it was going to be.
yeah. So we had run this ad for several days. I think I spent like $300 or $400 on it last year of like trying to get people in the door. And I got all these people that had responded to the ad, but then were like angry at me that there was a participation fee. And I remember there was one lady in particular that had responded and said, I just looked at your landing page, $90 participation fee so that I can promote your business. Yeah, right. Or something like that. And I was like, okay, like you could just say no, thank you, like, and it was just so like, like the fact of the matter is that I am providing you a service. I'm doing a 20-minute photo shoot for you in my studio that I have to pay for. They're wearing my clothes, they're getting an image, and they're getting a print. So it's not that you're just not getting anything and paying me so that you can promote my business. Does it promote my business? Of course, yes. But you also have this opportunity to win a pretty substantial prize.
Mhm.
And really, like, I think the most we've ever had in the contest was 24 babies over the years. So you have a 1 in 24 chance
Yeah,
of winning $1,200. That's pretty good. Like,
yeah, yeah.
so there's always going to be those people that don't like what you're doing or think you're too expensive or whatever. And I think the best way to combat that is to have all of that out there as like very clear, like write it all out however you have it presented, whether you have a landing page or a Google Doc or whatever it is that you're giving them so they understand about the contest before they ever sign anything or pay any money or come into your studio. They need to understand all those details. You need to be very upfront about it so that they know what this looks like. And even like for me, like discounts and stuff, I won't do like, oh, 5 images for 250. I'll say, my normal 5 image package is 590, and we're doing it for Chunky Baby for
Yeah,
this
yeah, I'm
amount,
sure.
and so I'm very clear that like this is the normal price. This is the price that you're getting it for.
Yeah,
Because if they come back to me down the road, I don't want them to go, wait, but we only paid, 250 for 5 images before. Now why is it 590? I don't understand. And so I don't want to have that disconnect. I want them to understand that, yeah, they're getting a discount. Yeah, they're having this, like my normal session fee is 200, chunky baby's 90. So like there's there's that level of communicating your value and what does this look like and then how does it normally work so
Yeah.
that they can feel like they're getting a great deal. Like I think that's a big part of the launch strategy of like what you're telling them and conveying to them so that they feel like they're getting a great deal.
And to
They're
do that, it actually works in your favor because you're explaining the normal price, which means if they come back for a normal deal, they get the
yeah.
normal price. And so they understand that it's stepped down, which means they have to step back up again if they're coming in for a future like photo shoot with you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's my big goal is like we just talked about, like I want to introduce them to my brand. So I don't want them to introduce them to the cheap version of my brand. I
Mhm.
want to introduce them to the full version of my brand where they pay the entire price, not the discounted price. And so that means communicating that, why that matters, what the value is, how it's important, and then understanding that there's always going to be some of those clients that don't see that
Yeah,
and go,
just not, yeah, they're
this
not going to
isn't for me.
understand.
That's
But
okay.
also, I think I just forgot what I thought. That was funny. I definitely had an important point I was going to make. Let me think about what it was. Yes, I think, yeah, I remember. I think that sometimes when you're doing a like this, oh, you just have to pay $90 and you can get one image, and your hope is that you upsell. And
Yeah.
I think sometimes when you hope for that, but you're a little scared that if you say it, you're going to scare them away, so you don't say anything. And then you almost definitely won't make the upsell because you haven't told them that there is an upsell.
Yeah.
And then you're extra disappointed because you didn't do the thing you hoped for, but you hadn't actually communicated to them in the first place. So I think
Yeah.
being very clear that if there is an opportunity to buy more, set all that out at the beginning so that at least you've seeded the idea of how much it costs and what's available. And if they don't want to take it, they don't have to.
Yeah. And I think that sometimes as photographers, we want people to book with us so badly that we allow people that really aren't good fits to book with us. And then we hope that it's all going to work out, and then we're pissed when it doesn't. And I think that that's just being honest with like, is this person actually a good fit? If they're questioning in a $90 session fee for my pricing anyway, it's not true for everyone's, but like for my pricing, if they're questioning a $90 session fee or saying, oh, I really want to join but I have to wait until Friday when we get paid, like that's not a good fit for my business because they're going to have a really hard time with my pricing and my packages. And it's it's better for everyone to let that person go so that the right person can come in. And and that's not to say that I definitely still have some families that join because they can't necessarily afford my pricing, but they love my work and they want to win that. Like I can think of one person that's in the contest this year that I know they can't really afford to work with me, but that's the whole point.
Yeah.
She's like, I want to pay the $90 participation fee because I so badly want a photo shoot with you.
Yeah.
And the $1,200 prize would go so far in allowing that to happen for us. And so those things actually make me feel really good.
Yeah.
Like those clients that want to work with me that bad, that are willing to spend that $90 that they don't necessarily have on that chance of that 1 in 24 chance of like actually getting to win is like, that's a feel good thing. Like that's the person that I want to win actually.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
like I want to work with a family that's like super excited and is like so grateful rather than some, family that can very easily afford it and is kind of snooty or like, doesn't really care. Like I
Well,
don't want that family to win.
and I think this comes a little bit back to goal setting. So if you're a new
Yeah.
business and your goal is to get some testimonials and some portfolio shots, then maybe it's you do it for free. It's just fine to
Yeah.
get people that won't come back because it allows you to build the things that you need off it. If it's to get your name known and marketing, maybe it's all right that half the people who join are not great fits.
Yeah.
Um, or maybe you put some kind of, instead of just apply it, like putting their name down, maybe there's some kind of interview you do first to help you assess whether it's the right person or not.
Yeah.
But this all comes back to what your goal is for the marketing campaign.
Yeah. And who do you want to work with, really? Like,
Yes.
what's
Yeah.
the end goal here? Like, if the end goal is not monetary, then maybe you only want to work with families that have specific characteristics, and maybe one of those characteristics is that they're just really nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Or have a
Like
really beautiful baby.
yeah, yeah. I just want to work with babies with red hair and curls. Like, big blue eyes.
So I think,
Okay, so that's we kind of started getting into the booking phase, but
yeah.
that's like, the next big thing is like once you've communicated that value and gotten people on board with all that, how do you actually get them to book? And you could have it as simple as like sign up here and here's this like link and whatever it is that you want to do. Like I said, like I use Tave that allows them to book their own slot, and that's worked really well for me. It collects their payment. It also sends the contract with all the like this is how this works. It's got the link to the pricing, and all of that comes over the years of just like understanding where I've had issues. And
And that's your regular system that you use for
and
all.
that's my regular system. Yeah, it follows the exact same system as any of my photo shoots. It's just the wording says chunky baby contest, and this is the participation fee is slightly different, and then it talks about the discount that they get, and then it has a link to the regular pricing. So all of those things are definitely tweaked just slightly for the contest, but it's my regular booking
And I would
process.
say that there is an advantage to using the system you would anyway, because this is just another touch point where they get to see that you have a professional brand with a fully digital system with contracts and invoices and everything
Yep.
set out very clearly. If they come back to you, it's going to work the same way and they're going to understand what it is because they've been through it already.
Yeah, absolutely. And that same thing goes for like once they have booked, it sends that auto reply confirmation. And then I have all my emails that are set up to go out like, it's like a week before their shoot, 2 days before, the day before. And then I have a templated email that goes when I send their gallery and say like this is how this is going to work, this is how the contest is going to work. And then I also have an email that will go out, I think it's next week, like 2 weeks before, that has all the details for like this is how we vote and this is how the contest is going to work now, and all that communication is all part of the booking phase, and like kind of that like through your photo shoot to like just a little bit afterwards of like what does this thing look like, what to expect, so that you don't get all those emails that say, hey, when is the contest, what do I do next, how do I order my images, like all that's taken care of, you've already provided that for them. And that's that set of emails and maybe it's text messages or however it is that you're communicating to them, maybe it's even videos that are showing them how this thing works, so that your clients feel like they're having this great experience. And even though it's this cheaper version of they're still getting a wonderful full brand, you
Well,
know.
and this is what we offer is full templates for your business when you're running it for full price clients so that you don't need to have all those questions coming, that you're anticipating the questions before they come. But I would say it's almost even more important in a marketing campaign like this where you're not earning as much money possibly because the
Yeah.
last thing you want to be doing is spending hours answering 24 people's questions about when to turn up or when do they get their free image or what happens next. Like you want that to be automated so you don't have to think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is that like usually with these sort of big projects, you're talking about a lot of clients. In Chunky Baby, I'm talking about 16 to 24. In other things, you might be talking about 50 clients for fall mini photo shoots or whatever it is that you're doing. It could be a much bigger number for you, or it could be 4 people. But when you're doing those bigger, larger quantities, you want to make sure that everyone's getting the same information on the same
Mm,
timetable, because otherwise things fall through the cracks. So
right.
if those things aren't automated and you go, oh, whoops, Jill never got the email about pricing. So now Jill's pissed because she's trying to order her images and she's discovering it's a lot more than she assumed it would be, And so, and that's not Jill's fault. That's Paige's fault because Paige didn't send the right email to Jill.
Well, and I think when it doesn't even really matter how many it is, although it often is more, I think it's also about a compressed timing that you have multiple
Yeah.
people running, possibly very slightly staggered in their time, but way more of them in a short space of time for a marketing campaign than you would if you just take one or two clients a month, say.
Yeah.
So now you really can't remember, did you send Jill a message yesterday, or was it Jenny, or was it that other person whose
Right.
name you've forgotten? Because just the number of them that are going and they're slightly staggered means it will be very hard for you to remember and keep track of all that manually.
Yeah, well, and like especially with like mini shoot sort of events, like usually you have a very small buffer, if any buffer at all, depending on how you build your mini shoots out. And so if one client is late, it messes your whole day up. It messes the whole schedule for everyone after that. So you need to send those emails and be like, this is your session time. This is when you should be there. If you arrive late, this is what will happen,
Mhm.
and having those things dialed so that they don't have any excuse. They can't say, oh, well, I thought it was at 11:30, not, 11. And
Wasn't
so,
sure how to get to your house because you hadn't let
yeah.
in instructions and I didn't realize I was to go in the front and not the back or whatever that might be.
Yeah. So you need to make sure that you have all those things so that it's their fault, not your fault,
Yeah.
right?
So one of the other things that we think a lot about in our templates that I know that you didn't think about earlier in your business is what happens after you've delivered the
Yeah.
images. And we have a whole set of templated emails that are just about post-image delivery. But I think that's also really important in a marketing campaign, especially if the goal here is not necessarily directly money, but it's to build your credibility. It's for people to remember who you are. It's that long maybe they won't hire me now, but maybe they'll hire me in a year when they're having a new baby. So,
Yeah.
is there any kind of special follow-ups you do for Chunky Baby that are different?
Yeah, so well, like I said, so we have all of their emails and all of their phone numbers when they vote. So on top, you have the people that are their babies are in the contest, but then those people have friends and family, and we post it all on social media and all that stuff. So we have all these people that are, and past clients that see it and are like, oh, that's fun, let's vote. And so all those people go into the voting system and their emails and phone numbers get recorded and they give us their permission to contact them. And so we send a text message saying thank you for voting. And then we offer a discount to any of those voting families on booking. It's a more substantial discount if they have a newborn. So that's my big goal. Like I always try and prioritize, like, what do I really want here? And I want my calendar be full of newborns. Like at the end of the day, I want babies that are 1 and under. And so, yeah, I like family photo shoots and I want a few of them, and it's nice to have them, especially in the fall. But family photo shoots are typically outdoors and they're typically on a weekend.
Yeah.
And I don't want those two things. Like, I like outdoor sessions, don't get me wrong, but my life is better with the studio sessions, and I can make just as much, if not more, money off the studio than I can on an outdoor session. So that's where my priority is. So, as my suggestion to anyone building any kind of marketing campaign is like, what do you actually want here? And does this marketing thing that you're trying to do lead you to the right people?
Mm-hmm.
And so Chunky Baby works well because most people having babies have friends who are having
Yeah.
babies. So even though this baby's already been born and I've missed the newborn, maybe I photographed it if they're a past client, but I might have missed this newborn session, but they might have another baby. They might have a friend having a baby. The people voting might be having babies. So the audience that's going to be attracted to this contest is all people that are kind of in that same sort of world, or their grandparents and whatnot. And
But
so,
they know
it's
people who
some of
are
those
at
people.
this stage of life.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do a follow-up email to everyone that specifically voted that says, thank you so much for voting. We'd love to offer you a discount and introduce you to our studio. There's a little details about like who we are, what we do, and that sort of thing. And then we just keep communicating with them for a couple weeks of like this promotional. So there'll be a promotional deal until the end of April. And the goal is to get the fall and winter months like pre-booked, because
Mhm.
I like to have my calendar booked out as far in advance as possible so that I can know what's coming revenue wise and where do I need to make a push. Oh, we've got, we're missing a few babies here, and, being able to fill those calendars in advance. That's my biggest goal with all this marketing, is to not have to worry about where my rent is coming from. I want to know that I've got people on the calendar and more people are coming, and I don't have to worry about that revenue because it's there. It's
Yeah.
it's sitting there waiting for their photo shoot to happen.
Yeah.
So that's the big future booking goal of this follow-up is, what does this look like? How do I get these people to turn into clients
Yeah.
themselves?
Yeah.
And how do I get them to tell other people about us? And so I do offer that discount. And then I'll also offer a discount to anyone, a more substantial discount to anyone that didn't win the contest.
Okay.
like one of the participants. So obviously, like the winner wins the photo shoot and $1,000 gift card. I'm not going to give that to everyone. But I am going to give a substantial discount to anyone that pre-books their fall family photos
Mhm.
so that I can build out get as many of those people in my door as possible while they're like, oh, I just have to spend $200 now, but then I get, this nice discount later. Like, okay, great. And they will make that decision to get on the books. So,
I think it's worth thinking about, like, some of you who are listening to this, if you're kind of newer photographers, might not imagine that in February you could pre-book your calendar for September. Like, doesn't have
right.
to be a book now and I'll have you on the calendar in a week's time or 2 weeks' time. This could be months out, to start, so that there's less of those peaks and troughs of what's happening in a month. You're kind of evening that out a little. You're still going to have to fill some gaps, but it means there's already quite a lot of padding in those months down the line, which is great.
Yeah. And we could do a whole thing on like how to build out your calendar.
Yes. Yeah,
We
maybe
need to,
that's next month, right? If anyone
yeah,
wants
that's a
it,
good
let us know.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, I feel like that's my biggest goal with any of these things is how do I make sure that people are still coming?
Yeah.
How do I let them know about me? How do I get them to talk about me to their friends having babies? How do I get them to walk in my studio
Mhm.
and feel it, because I think that's the biggest thing. Like if somebody walks into your space or works with you and they're immediately turned off,
Yeah.
then you have a different kind of problem.
Yeah.
But for me, my biggest problem is getting people in the door. Like just come in here so I can show you why it's different because there's so many photographers out there. Everyone has a different price point, and I am probably one of the most expensive, if not the most expensive newborn photographer in Boise. And so I need people to allow me to show them why that matters.
Yeah.
And so that's my big goal with all these things is how do I show them that it's worth it to spend more to work with me rather than someone else? And that's always like my biggest motivator when I'm doing any of these projects. So I think figuring out what your big motivator is and like why are you doing this ultimately to, to help you build that campaign out.
Yeah, I think if you know what your differentiator is, so some people differentiate on being the cheapest they can be. And if that
Yeah.
works for your business and your system, then what you're selling is the cheapest price. What
Yeah.
you're selling is an experience. So I was even just thinking when Justin, my other business partner, and I were setting up this workshop, we kind of did this backwards thing as well. We said, what is it about what we offer that everybody always says is so different? And it's the fact that we present live our calls, and they're all like, it's the calls that everybody says it's the calls we love. It's the live part where we talk it all through. It's not just a
Yeah.
passive video we watch. So we worked backwards. Okay, what could we do that was a lead magnet that showed that differentiator? And that then had to be a live call because that's the thing that differentiates us from other courses where you can learn this kind of thing. So really
Yeah.
that goes back to the goal setting, but I think it's a good way to end this is like really thinking about what is the point for your business of this? What is it that you wish people knew about your business? If only they knew this thing, you think you would get more clients in the door.
Yeah. I think that, yeah, the pre-launch goal setting, like how is it going to get you the right people? Like I wouldn't run a contest for like elementary school age kids for like coolest kid in Boise or like it could be kind of fun, but it doesn't bring in the
Not
right
going to
people for
help.
me.
Yeah.
So yeah, so if if you're a senior photographer, like you might do something like to like have a contest for seniors in high school, like and that would get you all the right people that have seniors in high school. So I think yeah, that goal setting, that figuring out your right audience, and then what does it look like on your calendar? How do you present it in the best way? Is all like all a big part of it.
Well, and then the only one other last thing I would say, so we're doing this very much, how do we make it intentional? A lot of realizing intentionally what you need only comes after you've got this wrong a few times.
Yeah, totally.
Marketing is kind of a bit hit and miss. It's a bit of a crapshoot. You have to try it. You're not going to get it right the first time. And if you do one marketing campaign and it doesn't really work and you give up, then you're not learning the lessons from it to apply in the future. This is your sixth year of doing this, which means now you can join all
Yeah.
those dots of what's missing. But I know you have, for example, given away photo shoot packages at school auctions and things like that, where maybe it wasn't your right fit people.
Yeah, and it doesn't work very well.
Yeah. but it might work for other people. And so
Yeah.
sometimes just gaining experience of different marketing, then you start to see, oh, it does have these four different parts to it. And then you can start to hone in, oh, this one might be better for me than the last one because
Yeah.
it fits better.
Well, yeah, and sometimes things resonate that like you didn't think would, and then others that like I don't know. I ran a motherhood spring contest, not a contest, but a motherhood like promotion a couple years ago, and it just was awful. Like I got like one person to sign up, and I was like, "What? How? Why?"
Why
Like,
do mothers not want to be sent? Because you probably weren't
yeah,
marketing to dads, or maybe it was
yeah.
grandmas you need to market to for that.
I don't know. It just didn't go either. I
Moms
thought
don't
I
buy that
figured
for
out this like
themselves.
formula. I was like, oh, okay, this is how you run this ad and this is how you do these things. And like, and to an extent that's true, but then it also like sometimes you just miss on the
Mhm.
message. And I think that motherhood campaign just missed. And people were like, I'm not gonna do motherhood pictures.
So keep trying. If you don't,
Keep
if
trying.
it doesn't succeed the first time, keep trying.
Well, yeah. And I think once you kind of build out some of these things, like it's really easy to be like, okay, I have this new idea. Let's try this. And
Yeah,
like you can take those pieces that you've already built and turn it into, this next idea. And hopefully one of those things will actually catch. And then you're like, oh, cool. Now I'm 6 years into this contest that works very well. And,
it
you know,
feels much easier. Yeah.
yes, absolutely.
So we would love to hear if any of you have tried marketing campaigns, whether they
Yeah.
failed or succeeded. We would love to hear what they are.
Well, and I also wanted to say too is like we've been talking a lot about all these emails and things that go with a marketing campaign, and we don't specifically sell like a marketing campaign, although there is a part of that in our Pregnant in Your City guide
Mhm.
that has like the emails and stuff that go with that. But we do offer one-on-one. Either you can sit down with Jill, or you can sit down with me, or you can do a VIP day with both of us, and we can help you. Like if you're like, okay, this is the kind of contest that I want to run, what kind of emails do I need? And or I have kind of written these emails, and then you have Jill come in and help you figure out like how do you actually make it work really well and kind of help you find those leaky holes so that you don't have big gaps in your coverage or like, whoops, I forgot to tell them about this part of it.
Yeah.
Just having somebody's eyes on it sometimes can help you figure out like, oh, whoops, I didn't explain that very well, did I? And so
Yes,
if you
no,
ever want to,
we would be
that's
happy
always
to
an
help
option
with
too.
that for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, I think that was a deep dive enough. Hopefully, marketing
Yeah.
doesn't feel quite as scary as it did at the start of the hour.
Yeah.
Uh,
And feel free to reach out if any of this is like confusing or they're like, what is she talking about?
we'll try and explain better. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll see you next month.
Sounds good. See ya.
Bye. Bye.